Hi guys, let's hear something horror from us.
In the Grimm's fairy tales, there are many dark stories and terrifying punishments. Today's story is about a wicked maid who pretended to be a princess. She was sentenced to death by her own order, sealed inside a barrel full of nails. Long ago, there was an aging queen. Her only daughter had been betrothed to a prince from a neighboring kingdom since childhood. As the wedding day approached, the old queen prepared many gold and silver jewels for the princess and arranged for a maid to accompany her on the journey. The two of them would ride fine horses to the prince's country. The princess's horse was named Falada, and this horse was very magical. It could speak. Before they set off, the old queen pricked her own finger and dropped 3 drops of blood onto a white handkerchief. "Keep this safe, my dear child. This is your charm. It will protect you along the way." The princess tucked the handkerchief close to her heart, tearfully bidding her mother farewell. Since it was summer, the princess became thirsty on the road. She asked the maid to take out a golden cup and fetch some water from the stream. But the maid responded coldly, refusing to serve the princess and not allowing her to use the golden cup. She even told the princess to kneel by the stream and drink like an animal. The 3 drops of blood whispered, "If your mother knew this, her heart would break in two." The princess was gentle and humble, never mistreating or scolding her servants. So she said nothing, quietly mounting her horse and continuing the journey. By noon, the weather grew hotter. The princess forgot the maid's rudeness and asked again for water. But this time, the maid was even more arrogant. "If you want to drink, get it yourself. I'm not here to serve you." The 3 drops of blood whispered again, "If your mother knew this, her heart would break in two." The princess, very thirsty, had to dismount and fetch the water herself. But as she bent down, the handkerchief fell from her bosom and drifted farther away with the stream. The maid saw this and rejoiced, for without the handkerchief, the princess had lost her protection. She would become weaker, unable to resist. Then, the maid forced the princess to swap clothes with her, and even took her talking horse. She threatened the princess not to tell anyone, or she would kill her. The princess, powerless, endured it all in silence. Finally, they arrived together at the royal courtyard. The prince quickly came out to greet them. Seeing the fine clothes on the woman, he naturally assumed the maid was his bride. He joyfully welcomed her into the palace. But the princess, in her simple clothes, could not hide her graceful beauty and noble demeanor. She stood sadly in the courtyard. The old king, seeing her, couldn't help but ask who she was. "Who is she?" The false bride, wanting to torment the princess further, replied that she was her servant. Just give her any job to do, so she doesn't get bored. The old king thought for a moment, "There's a young boy who looks after my geese. Let her help him in the goose pen." Soon, the palace held a grand wedding, and the maid became the prince's bride. The real princess was sent to work as a goose girl. The false bride was constantly anxious, worried her true identity would be revealed. She told the prince that the horse had caused her much trouble on the road. "My dear husband, please do something that will make me happy. Tell your butcher to cut off the horse's head." Upon hearing that Falada would be killed, the princess was heartbroken. She went to the butcher and begged him to hang the horse's head above the dark city gate. so that when she passed by with the geese, she could see it. From that day on, the princess passed by the gate every day and spoke to her beloved horse. The head, seeing the princess's misfortune, said, "If your mother knew this, her heart would break in two." The princess and the boy led the geese to the countryside, where the girl sat on the grass. She untied her ribbon and combed her golden, shining hair. The boy saw her hair glisten in the sunlight and ran to pull out a few strands. But the princess made a gust of wind blow the boy's hat away. By the time he retrieved it, the princess had already braided her golden hair, so he couldn't pluck any strands. The boy was very annoyed and sulked, refusing to speak to her. Days went by like this. The boy never succeeded, so he reported the princess's actions to the king. "She's always teasing me. I don't want to tend the geese with her anymore, and she keeps talking to the horse's head at the city gate." The old king found this odd, so he hid behind the gate the next morning to witness it all. The king felt something was amiss, so he grabbed the goose girl and demanded she explain her actions. The princess began to cry in fear. "I swore I wouldn't tell anyone of my sorrow, or I would be killed." The old king took her to an iron stove, telling her to confess her secret to it. After the king left, the princess tearfully revealed her true identity and the wicked maid's deeds. "If my mother knew, her heart would break in two." In fact, the king had been standing behind the chimney, listening to the whole story. He quickly summoned his son and told him everything. That evening, the king hosted a grand feast and told everyone a similar story at the table. Finally, he asked, "How should a servant who betrays her mistress be punished?" The false bride, unaware that her secret was out, replied proudly, "She should be stripped of her clothes, sealed in a barrel filled with nails, and dragged through the streets by 2 horses until she dies." Then the true princess, dressed in her royal garments, appeared before everyone. The prince took her hand and seated her beside him. The false bride was left in shock. The old king said, "You have judged yourself." And so the wicked maid was executed by the punishment she had described. Strangely enough, on the day the princess reclaimed her identity, her beloved horse Falada was revived. The king held an even grander wedding for them. The couple, both kind and gentle, after inheriting the throne, ruled the kingdom together and brought peace and prosperity to their people. This is the story of the Goose Girl from Grimm's Fairy Tales.